Oh, it's just Jord.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Little Nightmares video. I'm sorry for being gone for a week. I have been ill. So as a treat, I'm going to do the data mine today. And just a forewarning, before we get into the video, there are some things that I can't see in the data mine. So there are things like animations and sound files that for some reason you can't play through the new viewer. So with that being said, I'm going to take a look with you guys through some of the most interesting things I found going through the data mine. Now, I won't be revealing all of it, but I will be revealing a majority of it. So let's get started. I will go folder by folder. As you can see, we have got a few folders to go through. So this is what I see every time I come into it. Now, audio, like I said earlier, we can't actually touch audio because we can't play through it. But it's really interesting to go and look at what some of these file names are. For example, we've got the governess and the hypnosis play. And these are the files for the sound. This is obviously the master file. This is the one you will play through. But anyway, audio we cannot take a look at. But anyway, let's take a look at characters. So characters, we've got AI, which is going to be obviously all the AI factors or objects in the game. So in the AI folder, we do find a few of the, usual defaults. Chef, the governess, the guest, janitor, lady, Leech, gnome, prisoner, rat, seagull. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But I can't think what the actual shared one's for. But you can see here we have got a few of them. Now the shoe monster, believe me, it doesn't come with a skeletal mesh or anything. It is just a blueprint. So there's nothing actually embodying that file. But seagulls, there is a seagull. I mean, if you want to take a look at the seagull, it's right here. Oh, fancy the seagull. What is interesting though, I find, is how one of the files is named the governess and one is the lady. I believe though it's just for reference points. So the lady file is just for her blueprint and animations, and then the governess is her actual skeletal meshes and etc, etc. For example, there she is yet again. That's her with no mask on or anything of the kind. That's just her in her face. But apart from them two, the only actual different one we do get is the ensign governess. Well, the difference between these is nice feet. Obviously, the shoulder's free. As you can see here, this is where Six takes a nice chunky lady meal. But with that, we also have the mask that's placed on her. This is her actual mask that's in game. This gets attached to her. And then after that, we've got the guest animations. We've got the guest files. Now, obviously, the guests, there are a few guests. As you can see, there are guests 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, for example, we could just take a look at guest 6. This comes with a mask as well and the second type body. As you can see up here in the corner where it says object under the class. This is what this guest is one that walks through and the one that's having a chow down at dinner time. That's yet again with a mask. They've all got these weird masks. It's interesting to have a look at. Guest 4, we know him as the baby guest, the big fat baby guest. It's got some hamster cheeks going on there, but apart from that, it's the same old, same old. And then we got the lady guest, the big lady guest. Then you got the usual guest that you used to, and I think there's just one more. No. There you go, there's the default one. That's the one you're used to on the covers and whatnot. With that being said though, we can go have a look at Roger. And Roger obviously comes with some poses, which is interesting. And that's his arm. And I believe this one's for the it's the left arm. It's his left arm that's grabbing. And I think this is for the moment where Six gets caught in the cage and they have to play the animation, because that has its own animation, I believe, as well. And then we have obviously the skeleton mesh janitor. Very long arms indeed. And also we have his badge. And we've all been there before, so we all know what that is. With that being said though, I will briefly go through all the ones we already know and love. But then we got to go into the most interesting ones which come in the DLC. So we have obviously the Leech. There you go. Not very entertaining. There's an animation that comes with that, which I cannot play through for some reason. Then we've got your gnome, which is interesting. What was interesting, that's a dead frozen gnome. So that's the one that you see with the bag there, and you see him just frozen dead. If we take I think it's in, I'll quickly briefly show this, but in the hideaway, we get the character's AI and we go back to gnome. But yeah, one of them, this is the, obviously, so remember how we said in the hideaway a while back that you get that second shadow from the gnomes and you see it coming through the shadows of the kids coming from the gnomes? Well, this is how they've done it. They made a shadow gnome boy and the gnome no shadow. So this is the shadow you will see. So they would render this instead of one of these versions like that. I think if we look, and there's also the girl one. Now you don't see this one very often, but I did notice it in a theory that I did, that there is one part of the hideaway that actually shows the gnome girl instead, the gnome girl shadow instead, which is quite interesting, to be quite fair. Anyway, so we got the prisoner. Did we look at the prisoner? We had a look at the gnome. We didn't look at the prisoner. So these are all boys, and there's a girl there. Now these are the ones. This has a hood as well. Very interesting, and the girl has a hood as well. And then with that, we have the cutscenes. Now the cutscenes we can't see a lot because they are animations yet again. We can't actually see these, but from the names you can tell what they basically are. So this is when they react. This is when they sleep the loop. So if you just like go out of the boundary, they will carry on looping instead of going into the stand-up mode. With that being said, they also have the player. Now the player, we can't see a lot of the player apart from obviously 6. That's all we see. Animation wise, I can't show you anything else apart from that. We can see materials, but that's basically it. So this is what 6's material looks like. Then we have the DLCs. Now the DLCs, we will go each in one. So we have the depths, obviously, and then we have the residents, which is, for some reason, they kept the same name, which makes me believe that I actually was right about the name. With hideaway, so we'll go through the depths first. So with the depths, we see, obviously, in the characters, we get player. That's obviously us still. There's our flashlight, so that's the player's flashlight. Runaway kid with his shackle all on. And this is the depths model runaway kid. Now they do, I think they do change from each one. I can't remember. But yeah, with that being said, there's the characters. So you've got the AI, which is the granny. So here's the beautiful granny with her luscious hair. Yeah, she's quite fabulous. With that being said as well, they've also got 2 versions of her. Now I think one is an effect for the cloth. So you know what she's wearing here and the hair. I think one is using the hair and one doesn't. One is using the cloth in hair, one doesn't use the cloth in hair. It's a way to save data, I believe, in the game and whatnot. The janitor, obviously, it takes the original model of the janitor. Leech takes yet again the same one, but they play different animations. Same with the prison girl and the water rat, same thing. I'm usually often interested in decorations. You could usually get something really rubbish like the seaweed overhang. For some reason that's seaweed, you wouldn't think it was leeches. It's actually seaweed pile. With that being said though, we have walls and wallpaper. Now these ones don't usually give us amazing textures, but when you zoom in you can actually see their patterns from in-game. Like this one is from the Leech itself, where it does that style and animation. It's just looped throughout the whole stripe. And with that being said, if we take a look further into the assorted meshes and go look at some effects, we can see the child doodles. These are some of the stuff that's drawn by the kids. So it's dope. They often name their files very accordingly, so you can use the file names as evidences sometimes, because when they're all compact and they're all like in the data, they're going to want to reference things properly, so it needs to be named appropriately. And then obviously we could look through the environment, but yet again, area specific stuff and all that malarkey. It's a whole bag of goodies in here. I would suggest if you want to see some stuff, just let me know in the comments. Like for example, you can see like a broken plank and whatnot. But there are some extra bits in the DLC ones that are very interesting to look at. But if you want to look at them, let me know. So that's the hideaway done. What we can do now is take a look at the Eyrie. So this is all the residents information that was input into the game. So audio, yet again, we can't see it, but we can see what the files are called. And for example, we can see there's lady files, so music, stinger, gnomification. See, as you can see, it's an actual process. They call it a process in the files. Gnomification is a thing. And then we've got the lady's secret. I've really been going to theorize about there might actually be a special ending for the game, but I have yet to figure out what it is. But that's something I keep looking into. And we've got the music box, and then sounds for that obviously comes in. The shadow kids have their the stinger, so the eerie dark pulse. So that's like a general background ambient noise. Then that's the dark pulsing effect you get, and then obviously bits and bobs. But that's basically your music and your sound effects and stuff like that. Blah, blah. Very straightforward, but that's all your audio. So for the characters, this is quite interesting. So if we go into the characters, I can't, unfortunately, due to the program itself, I can't actually go and widen these windows, so you can't name them fully. But you can see there's a DLC lady. Now, usually they don't usually add an extra one, but they have in this case. So this is what we're used to seeing, and then you can actually have a look at the lady model for that. And obviously, as you can see, it's just basically a reskinned granny. I mean, if we take a look at the other ones, it's just literally a granny rip-off with just the lady's hair and whatnot. Even the hands and models of stuff are the same as the ladies, as you can see here. It's just literally they cut it off and they've reused the asset. So it's not generally the granny, because I think the granny's arms would be a lot longer than that. And like I said, like the colours of the feet and whatnot. So it's just a reskinned lady basically with the granny. So that's unfortunate. Now the Shadow Kids is quite annoying because there isn't anything in that folder particularly, but I know where I think I remember where there is something. It's in here. There you go. So we see all their masks and whatnot. Now the masks are very interesting. They all have a different Shadow Kid mask. It's all differently designed. Like they have something completely different in each one. There are some things that we can't see though. So we've got obviously our playable gnome, which is just basically another set of animations and blueprints. And then we've obviously got our player, which we all know and love is obviously the Runaway Kid. So there's nothing needed to be added there apart from a few animations. And then obviously we can see the environment. Now the environment comes with a very interesting set of objects and whatnot. My favorite ones are the decorative, and then we have a look, because it's hard to have a look through here, but if we can have a look at the paintings, this is where it gets fun and interesting. Like we have a lighthouse painting here, which is that one. That was the one that has been, I think the painting lighthouse one, this one is the one where that opens and then you see that, spoiler alert, you see the drinks and stuff where you get the key for that one part of the level. Then we have the painting kit _3, which is all the new, as they've listed here, the new ones. And this is really cool because in this we can see, I'm going to just hover over each one and then you can all have a look at it properly. But what's interesting is they've took, can you see here where they do the overspill of the actual pictures? And if you can see, they've actually got a picture here, which is the same man, but it's overspilled into this image. What makes me a little bit, is they must have all these, see all the black markings around, all these must be very specific pictures, but they've actually blurred them all out. And what's interesting about it is, if you look at this one, you can see there's a bit of a dark aura in it, like an 8. Which is actually quite interesting. It's really, I haven't been able to suss it out yet, but there's also an eye, which I think is the 0 eye sort of thing, but there's the 8, blah, blah. But anyway, here's the lady, and then there's the favourite quote they left us in to see. I'm afraid I can't explain myself, sir, because I am not myself, you see. So that's Alice in Wonderland quote. But yeah, so there's the governess, as we know and love. But yeah, so we have the a big fat lady. I think this is the one from the concept art. Maybe it's just zoomed in. So you can imagine, obviously, it's massive, and then 6 standing here washing her with like a toothbrush. Then we have a type of younger lady, the governess, maybe. There's nothing really indicating who or what she is, but by the look of the facial features and the masks, it actually looks like it would suit the lady very finely. As you can see, we've got another one of the lady here. There's a difference between these two, and I think one is a bit more coloured than the other. I don't think there's a massive actual difference. But with that being said, then we've got obviously the stance lady. I think this is the one that was in the main hall. Not too sure about that one. But there's that one. And then we have this funky dude. I haven't named these, so I wouldn't know. And then we've got this guy, which could well be somewhat related to the Bowman group, with the bow ties and whatnot. And then we've got the children. That's one of the children's images that we saw in the first game, which is interesting because one of the eyes looks like it's sort of sore and whatnot. With that, we've got the, I believe this is outside the moor. I think this is actually just like, so in the issue of the first comic where we see all the buildings sort of leaning across and whatnot, I think this is the same sort of image. These are the buildings leaning across, and this is the washing lines where they hang all the stuff to dry. And then we've obviously got the other kid again. And it's interesting because if you look in the corners of these again, that's definitely a picture of the eye. That's definitely an eye picture. And I've seen this image before, and you'll see it soon. But yeah, so there's that. Then we've got that funky dude with a nice set of lips. I have no idea who it is. And then we've got him again. I think these are all images in the, obviously the residence. But these are the bits where you have to go through that certain frames to get the lock done and whatnot. But yeah, again, it's all the same stuff. Even if you rotate the block, it's just a repetitive. But that's the new kit, apparently. And these are the old ones, according to the files, which is interesting. Because there we have a gnome. or seems to be the start of a gnome, maybe the gnomification process in its very early days, where it would literally just have the hat and the gnome body as usual. Then we have the twin chefs, and then we have a nice baby guest sort of face. And what's interesting is the apple in the book. Now, I wonder if this references another movie like Alice in Wonderland, but I can't pin on it just yet. And with that being said, we have our lovely old Wax Bauman image again, right here. And then we have this one, which I don't think I've seen this one before, and it's quite interesting to see what's going on here. But I feel like that might be what's coming out of a mirror, maybe, like we see in the comics. And then we've got, obviously, the hanging furniture, and it looks like these furnitures are actually occupied, if you look at this bed, which is quite strange. And then here we have that eye image where they rip off the sides, so it's interesting to see that being used on a different one as well as the new one. With that, we have our weird old guy again. I don't even know what his issue is. And then we have our granny. Granny's nice close-up shot, so hallelujah, the granny's in it again. But with that being said, then we have our stickman. Now, what's interesting is this is definitely not the same image that's in the end scene. This is not the same image. This is actually a different one. So, like I said earlier, I feel like there might be another secret ending in the game. And this could well be in it. Because I haven't seen this in game yet. If you guys have, let me know. That would be great. And then we've also got the door in the frame with a hand. And then, yes, again, then we have all these images as objects in the game, so we can look at just the framework and whatnot. There's nothing major in it. Then we've got the painting kit 4. And yet again, we have another lovely quote from the team. Why so curious? Stay curious. Which is really interesting. So these are all from the new ones. Now, take a look at this one. This is the one we recently did a video on. The Shadow Kid theory and whatnot. These are, like I said, quote in the video, it looks like the souls of a flame, or like souls coming out or going into the jar. But this is where we can have a closer inspection, like you see. And it definitely looks like burn marks. So that's quite interesting to see. And we do see a few faces in it, so it's interesting. Then we see our eyes and how... Notice how they've blurred out the rest yet again. It's really annoying how they've done that. But then this is obviously for that shadow room you go in where all the eyes are sitting. And then we got our children, which is quite creepy. One, on account how that one's not coloured. This kind of looks like just a drawing of some sort, but... And then we have our two maybe original sort of guests to the moor, so kids to the moor. That's quite odd. And then we have our advertiser friendly chow down posters that are sent out. With that we can see them sat in a frame, and these are all the textures of the frames as well. Fire faces is what they've actually called it in the data mine, is the fire faces. And there's your burnt painting frames. So this one I believe goes along with the fire faced one. So it goes under here. I think that's the frame it belongs to. So some of the other stuff we can take a look at is like the carpets and whatnot, because some of these introduce quite an interesting concept. So how, notice how many there's, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ladies. And what's interesting is you get the 8 ladies on the rug, and then you've got that 8 figure in the paintings. I wonder if there's a correlation or something kind. We see the ladies and like a keyhole as well, which is quite interesting. A keyhole, or it could be like 6 maybe, I don't know. I don't believe that one massively. Then we've got the eye, an eye in the centre of it all again. So you can actually see, if you go look at the materials, there are actually a few different types of faces in this, so it's actually quite interesting. You could well theorise about that, you know. With that being said, we can get a look at the statues as well. Now obviously we can't see it again, but we get child statues. So these are the ones that we see obviously in the residence, which is interesting, especially to get a look at these close up. It's actually quite interesting. Then we have it's the 4th child statue, and he's holding up the little lady item. I can't remember how that one's called actually, but there's no head, which is always good to know. And then this is just another statue itself, but for some reason this one's called the child statue, where it wouldn't. I know it's definitely a lady, and yet again a little girl's holding it as well. It seems to be they have one holding it and one not holding it, but yeah. But that's just the child ones, and then we've got the doll statues, which that's it. So there you go. You see a nice facial expression there, and I believe these are the ones that are in that little room of the offering. And this one has a mask, which is quite interesting. But what I find absolutely really interesting about these is, as you can see, one's got their eyes closed, and then the second one's got its eye open, and then one's got the mask on it. And what's interesting is you see between the doll's eyes closed to the statues with the eyes open, there's cracks all over the face as well, which makes me wonder if there's some sort of process going on or whatnot. That's why obviously the masks need to be applied, but that's a theory for another day. And then we obviously have the big governor statues that are really long, and it's quite creepy, especially with the hands and whatnot. But these are quite interesting to look at as well. They're definitely old as well. You could take a look at the material and textures in them. They've done a great job of modelling these, I thought. And what's interesting as well is it seems to be the lady we know. I want to say it is her. And I want to see if she's copying the dolls that we saw earlier. But with that being said, yet again, there's two sort of stances to it. So the one stance is that she's sort of maybe a bit distant, maybe a bit cautious, whatnot. And then the other stance is her opening up to whoever is looking at the statue. And then you've got this one. This one's quite like a sorrow one, I would imagine. Maybe she's sad about something. Something about maybe with the children or whatnot. And you can see her face is cracked in this one. I think it's quite like a visual metaphor, if you will. And then we've got obviously this statue, which doesn't seem to fit into anything. And we saw it in the game, but this could potentially be maybe the hanging man's face. It could be an interesting theory on that. But that's an interesting one that I can't seem to put in any sort of place. Before I forget, the doll collection, now this is what the lady has, isn't it? And there's actually quite a lot of these dolls, 15 to be precise, and each one has a different design. As you can see, here is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th and 15th. What is interesting though is they are all different, so I wonder if they do represent anything. But there you go, there's a few with just the heads as well, which is quite weird to look at. But anyway, then we've got bits like the drapery kit that you see right at the end of the game. Like, these are bits that aren't massively interesting, but it's quite cool to have a nose. Then we have the child gnome clothes. So that's the chain that comes off the runaway kid when he gets gnomified. And then there's his clothes on the floor. But that's basically the decorative part of the game. The library also just has a set of books and whatnot in it that are interesting to look at, especially close up. But obviously they're named appropriately, like the key book and whatnot, circled book. This is the shelf that it goes on, like blah blah. And then you've got the second book kit, which is I think just the normal piles of books, which is nothing major. And there is one sort of thing that I did find very interesting. I wonder if I'll find it. So you've got obviously our TV bits here. So this is the legs of the TV. Then we've got the Thin Man that appears on screen according to the files up here, which is TV screen Thin Man. Purposely hiding that one from me. Then we've got the material for the television. That's the one you see. And we've got the armchair, but then there's the object itself. Obviously it matches the sort of one that we see with the hanging man, but obviously I don't believe that's true. And they've been so gracious to detail the thing with a stain as well. There's the bottle. I'll have to try the bottle. It's a texture that's for the bottles, and they come with very interesting names. The bottle kit. So as something that's really interesting is one of the things that the runaway kid runs around for is the message in the bottle. As we can see, the actual name is called Message in a Bottle. With that being said, obviously the runaway kid has a very interesting container called Message in a Bottle, so I'd love to know what the message says one day maybe. But then this is what I was also interested to show you all. This is a bottle kit label kit, and these are the ones that get to put on the bottle. It's a very interesting detail to have, even though you don't really get to see it in game. But what's interesting is I've researched sort of all the names, and it seems to be a play on everything in the real world. So there's nothing major there, but I thought it'd be cool to show you all. So some of the stuff that we see are like the teapots. This is a Japanese teapot texture, and I like it because of how it's named Japanese teapot. Like it's so relevant to our world and stuff. But it's interesting to know what they actually name their things and whatnot. But yeah, so they have loads of like Japanese cooking pots and whatnot, so textures. But it's interesting. It's interesting to know, like we see here, the ones that the chefs use and whatnot. But yeah. But with that being said, guys, But there's also something else I wanted to show you, and that's actually part of obviously the theory we just did, and it's the burnt wallpaper texture. And this is what it is. This is what you see on the walls in the game, and it's actually generally a burnt wallpaper. As you can see, you've got obviously the burnt markings and whatnot. And I find it quite interesting how they've kept that in with the area specific folder, which is the lady's secret. Now we all know that's the residence part. But yeah, I just want to show you that. It's quite interesting. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all the files that are actually in the moor. I thought I'd end it on the last bit, the island that we see in the game and in the pictures and whatnot. But that is generally everything that I can show you at the moment. If you want to see anything specific, let me know. If you actually want to go through all the items that are in the files completely, then let me know. It'd be really cool to have a good old look. With that being said though, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all in the next video. And if you've got any theories that have come off this video, let us know in the comments below. We can all have a good old talk about it. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you're having a fabulous day, night, morning, wherever you are, and I wish you all the best. And remember to like this video and also subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell button because YouTube is so broken. If you hit the bell button, you'll get a notification whenever I make a post. So with that being said, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.